Hello, everyone. I'm Alexei from Marketsy, and this is our pilot episode of the Remote Income Podcast. We haven't decided about the name of that, so for now it's Remote Income, where we speak to digital product creators and entrepreneurs about their business. And today, our first guest, and thanks a lot for his courage to be our first guest, actually. His name is Evgeny. He's ex-Amazon, ex-Apple, who built brands, generated ideas, lead teams in a variety of well-known enterprises. And then he decided that he has courage and knowledge to teach other people to get into these FAANG companies. Hi there. Hello, Evgeny.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I have a short plot and a few questions. And the first one, first things first, how did you come up with the creation of Day One Career on the first place?
Cool, great question. So basically what happened was I was in my last sort of final 3 to 4 months at Amazon. I already resigned because Apple hunted me, and I thought, well, I owe it to myself to see what it's like to work in one of the companies that I absolutely adore. And Amazon was one of those companies, but I thought, you know what, when Apple is calling, you might as well try it and see what it's like. And I got myself involved in answering questions from people on this anonymous professional network. It's called Blind. I think it was originally a South Korean project, which I believe started in South Korea for folks to discuss their managers anonymously. I think it's a thing in South Korea. So they launched it in the States, and there was a lot of discussion on that platform, which I stumbled upon completely by surprise, about how to get into Amazon, and folks were asking for tips and for various ideas on how to prepare for interviews. And so I just started to give out some tips and ideas, and I was doing it anonymously, just in general, how to prepare for Amazon interviews. And a lot of this stuff was at the time based on, I guess, my experience at Amazon as a hiring manager and an interviewer, but also on my experience as a candidate that was successful in getting a job at Amazon. So I started answering those tips. Then the next thing that happened is I started coaching. Then I realized, okay, I seem to be spending a lot of time coaching candidates, so I started charging money for it, and so it became a side hustle, you could say. And it started when I was in my final months at Amazon. Then it started spilling over into my role at Apple, and I was doing it on top of my role at Apple. Then I realized that actually coaching folks quite a lot while doing a full-time job at Apple wasn't going to work out. So I decided to convert all of my insights into digital courses and sell them instead of courses. And then the whole thing took off and started suggesting to me that what started as a side hustle may actually become a full-time job. Then what happened is I merged with my direct competitor. And my direct competitor, interestingly enough, is also a former Amazonian. She quit Amazon slightly earlier than me, and she set up her YouTube channel. And one of the candidates that we both ended up working with at the same time said to her and me that apparently we were the most credible folks in the industry, and so we merged under the brand that I started. But it's today, Day One Careers, which is my core business, is a business of two people, myself and my partner Gigi.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Actually, I didn't even know that you started that right as a side hustle, and it sounds super exciting to have that.
But that's actually how many of these transitions from the corporate world into solopreneurship or entrepreneurship tend to start. Because imagine exiting a six-figure job, a six-figure compensation job, and then just plunging yourself into something completely unknown. It doesn't work. Also, to build something like a side hustle that I had into a business that could compete with a full-time income from a big tech company, that actually took, I would say, a good 8 or 9 months of consistent investment into building this business. So I think in a way, that actually tends to be the classic path from life in a corporate world into life as an online solopreneur.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, actually, I had another question about what's affected your decision while you had this six figures job in a huge corporate, which is actually the dream of many people. And this, what ideas come to a mind to a person who decide to quit all of this and just start from not from the scratch, but basically close to this?
Sure. So I guess it was a combination of two motivations. The first one had to do with being able to fit more complexity into my lifestyle. So I have a family. I've got three children, three amazing children. And during COVID, which is when I transitioned from Amazon to Apple, I ended up using the flexibility that remote work offered at both Amazon and Apple to be able to fit more of being a dad into my life, being able to drop one of my kids at school and pick her up, and all of that complexity that I managed to handle on top of doing quite a demanding big tech job. It worked in the concept of a remote working scenario. And then what started happening is I knew that this was going to happen. So as many companies started introducing return to work schemes, and big tech companies were quite keen to rebalance this huge imbalance that COVID created and fill the empty offices back with employees and improve the productivity and all that. I knew that for Apple, this would eventually mean full-time 4 or 5 days being at the office. And at the time when I had this anticipation, those return to work plans weren't fully announced. But I just knew that as an organization, and if you read anything about Apple and Apple's culture in the open sources, you will know that it's hugely collaborative. Even Steve Jobs was praised of saying Apple is hugely collaborative and they love FaceTime collaboration. So I knew that in order for someone to be able to be successful and fully thrive in an Apple culture, you need to be able to be co-located with the people who you work with. And so that's one thing. I just knew that it would be a huge challenge for me to be able to transition back to 9 to 5 at the office without having this flexibility of remote work. And then on the other hand, the early experience of making something with my own hands, right? And obviously it's an educational products, right? I'm selling educational products. So the products I'm selling, these are digital courses that help candidates prepare for behavioral interviews at Amazon. But at the heart of it's an educational product. And just the experience of coming up with an idea and then executing that idea, converting it into a product, and people using it, and then sending you feedback saying that I actually managed to get a six-figure salary job in a big tech organization, a highly coveted big tech organization like Amazon. I became addicted to it, just this whole idea of making something with your own hands. And that's something, again, it's something that you do get in a lot of corporate jobs where you get to influence big decisions that affect how customers experience products. But there is nothing quite like being an entrepreneur. And if these things work, like I had one candidate write to me saying that, and it was quite recently, someone that I coached actually in 2022. He resurfaced recently in our community, and he said, Evgeny, I really want to help you, and I want to volunteer some of my time to help your community. And I said, why do you want to do that? And he said, well, you helped me switch. The guy was struggling to pay his rent, and now he's at Amazon. He's saving for a mortgage deposit. And I know that obviously no amount of preparation and coaching and education can guarantee that someone gets a job, especially at a company like Amazon, for sure. So this was down to him. But just being a part of a journey of someone like that, it gets you addicted. And so, yeah, I got properly addicted to this feeling.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Actually, I started to understand what drives all the teachers, tutors, and coaches actually. So it sounds like a real addiction. Yeah. Yeah, another question is, it might feel a bit controversial that you just quit the corporation world to help people to get into that. Does it feel sometimes for you like that or not? Or what's your take?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it, and there is an interesting moment of tension. Now, the thing is, just because I'm helping folks get into the corporate world while I'm not being inside the corporate world myself, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with actually getting into the corporate world. I'm coaching, and my business partner and I, we're coaching and working with plenty of candidates who don't even have this consideration of exiting the corporate world. I mean, the corporate world is amazing, and don't get me wrong. If you look at the biggest, most scalable, and widest reaching innovations that have changed our lives and the lives of people around the world, they were all produced by corporations. They might have started by startups when these corporations were nascent and little startups. I like the story of the company that I joined for my first ever job, which had nothing to do with technology. It was the company called Procter & Gamble, which is, you might not even know what this company is, but actually if you ever went to a supermarket and you bought yourself a deodorant or a shower gel or a shampoo or even a laundry detergent, and you look at the back and you see who made that laundry detergent, you might stumble upon the logo of P&G, and that is indeed Procter & Gamble. And the company started as an entrepreneurial gig of two guys. One of them was making soaps, the other one was making candles. And then it grew into this whole massive multi-billion-dollar international enterprise that helps folks around the world look their best, solve hygiene problems in a lot of parts of the world where hygiene is still an issue due to the various different reasons. Companies like Procter & Gamble that produce these very, very simple, not super exciting products that they're materially changing the lives of people in their millions for the better. And so that's why for me, corporations, there's nothing evil or controversial about corporations. Corporations are great. And life of an entrepreneur is not for everyone. Maybe at some point in time, I'll teach people how to exit the corporate life. But I know plenty of folks who are still in doing the corporate life and they're loving it. To each their own.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, yeah, I know the opinion that corporates are evil, and I wanted to hear that it's not that bad actually, as people say sometimes. Yeah.
The opposite.
Yeah, I agree now. Yeah, and you have already mentioned that you are not a solo founder for now. Actually, you're a solo founder, but right now there are two of you, right? And how do you split your duties? Are you both like all-in-one people, or you do marketing and your partner teach, or vice versa?
So we both, with regards to coaching candidates, we do it together, as in we both run coaching sessions. With regards to developing digital content that we sell as our digital courses, we collaborate on script writing together. We produce the videos ourselves. We edit the course together. So we just use an online platform to do so. We agree on the elements and styles, so we do editing together, and that seems to work. I think where we do split and divide the labor, so to say, is around things like which traffic channels do we own in terms of marketing. So Gigi, for example, is an expert YouTuber. She built her original business before we merged using YouTube as the channel to generate traffic. I was mostly relying on my blog traffic, and so I've learned how to successfully play the SEO game, and this is where my expertise lies. So for all things YouTube, I go to her. For all things SEO, she goes to me. And then I guess when it comes to adding AI features and actually software and software tools, online tools, in addition to courses, this is where I guess I fully dove into my passion to be able to build software without having to code. And that's why we're using one of the no-code or low-code platforms to deliver our AI tools together with our courses. And I've built those, but the thing is, in terms of getting feedback and insights and getting a bit of a product manager input, this is what I'm getting from Gigi as well. So it works out extremely well, and I think both of us are building and discovering new and new strengths and just throwing them into the pot, and that's how we collaborate.
Yeah, this is how entrepreneurship works, actually, right? So you always have to find something new that you have to do and then polish that. Cool. And you used to be a full-time marketer, right? And what changed in your maybe state of mind to become an educator and to managing both of these skills?
Well, I guess I guess this is maybe it's an interesting question, because actually if you step back and if you look at maybe if there's one element of the life in the corporate world versus the life of an entrepreneur, this is where being a specialist versus being a generalist, it leads to slightly different outcomes. Because in the corporate world, there's this thing called the generalist tax, which is if you look at anyone in the corporate world who tried to develop a more generalist career, you will usually struggle to progress as fast as someone who perhaps stayed in just one functional area and just built more specialization. And it's a common thing. It's called the generalist tax. And by the way, this is driven a lot by, I guess, some of the orthodoxies in hiring, where folks that have been doing the same thing for years and years tend to be a lot more valuable in terms of compensation and progression versus someone who changed job functions. Flip this on its head in the entrepreneurship. So I've always had interests in marketing. This is where I did my degree in Canada. And I think a basic understanding of marketing is something that I just think it needs to be taught everywhere. Whatever you do, if you're touching anything that will see the eyes, ears, or anything that will help people, anything that could be a product or a service that others will consume, you need to have the basic understanding of marketing. But then I've always been extremely curious about software development, data analysis. And when I was at Amazon, which is something that I am superbly grateful to the company for, I've had the experience of understanding how to build databases specifically around data warehousing, obviously. So I never had access to any of the upstream data, but the minute Amazon cleaned it and packed it away for marketers and everyone else to use, this is where I really had an insight as to how the whole thing works. And then someone told me that, well, actually, what software is at the heart of it is just a database with bells and whistles. And so that's how I started exploring no code, and that's why I can build software in no code. And then when it comes to being an educator, so I've always been extremely passionate about developing people. This was the thing that I enjoyed the most while I was a team leader in all of my jobs where I had a team reporting into me. Then I always took the opportunity to participate in various learning and development initiatives within corporations. And again, I guess this is my Procter & Gamble training from mid-2000s speaking. See, when I joined P&G, the company would never hire anyone from the outside. So it was basically an entirely promote from within organization. In which case, how do you think you'll learn? In a company that never has any, I guess, influx of new talent from the outside other than from at the bottom, how do you handle learning and development? And at the time, P&G would rely almost exclusively on its own people. So you could be, let's say, a director of hair care in some other market, but you might develop your own training on how to produce the best advertising possible. And then you end up traveling the world delivering this training, while at the same time doing your main job, doing something else. So I've always been a believer in doing that as well. And I guess now as an entrepreneur, I can combine everything. I can build software, I can educate, I can design products, I can do marketing, and that's pretty amazing. And that's for sure. There aren't that many corporate jobs that can allow you to do the whole thing.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Another question about your alumni and your courses. You help people to get into Amazon, which is great. But have you ever thought people who take your courses have some unfair advantage in comparison to people who don't take them, and make this almost impossible for not prepared by courses people to get into Amazon to secure this job. Does it work this way?
That's a good question. First things first, we're very upfront with every candidate that no amount of preparation will guarantee that you'll get a job. And fundamentally, what gets you the job in any company is a combination of your career and the skills and the experiences and the expertise that you bring. It's genuinely being something that the other company is looking for. It's the quality of your interviewers. It is your interview skills. And then there's this one big element, which is luck. So everyone needs that. And the only thing that we can help you with is the interview skills, right? Everything else, unfortunately, we can't help you with. We can't redraw your career, reinvent elements of your professional history. That's just not how it works. Now, then the question becomes, does it mean that teaching people how to improve their interview skills, and specifically their interview skills with regards to Amazon, give them an unfair advantage? I don't think so. I think it does give them an advantage, but I don't think it's unfair, because why do we do education? You can extrapolate this to almost any area of life where you have someone who has education and someone who doesn't have education. Someone who with some sort of education will always have an advantage. It doesn't mean that this particular advantage will guarantee the outcomes, because, for example, someone who didn't take our courses, or in fact didn't take any sort of preparation, might still be successful, and vice versa. But I think that education is beautiful. Yes, it does generate advantage, but it doesn't give it for free. You still need to work, you need to study. And I would say that in the majority of cases, I would say folks who don't come to us and so we ran a survey with folks who stumbled on our website and our YouTube channel and didn't purchase our courses. So they consumed our blog content, our free YouTube content, they consumed some of our freebies. And then we ran a survey and we asked them, why didn't you buy? Why didn't you invest? And the typical answer is that there's just enough of the free content available, and we decided not to do that. And it's not due to the fact that they weren't aware of us, is they were aware of us, but they decided that they don't require this education. And then I guess it's up to them.
Yeah.
There's also a story, I know there's a story that I have with myself. So this was a time when I moved to London and I wanted to change industries. So I still wanted to stay in the corporate sector, but I wanted to change industries. And so from being a brand manager in a consumer goods company, I wanted to join a top consulting firm. And so I picked Marketsy as my target company. And I tried getting into Marketsy in Moscow before I moved to London. And I was unsuccessful. I couldn't even get past the first stage, which is a problem-solving test, a Marketsy PST. I took the test completely unprepared. And I know there are plenty of folks who do that and they get in because they've got the natural talent for that sort of stuff. But clearly I didn't have the natural talent, so I didn't get in. Then I moved to London and I decided to do this again. So this time, prepared massively. I spent time on top of my day job solving microeconomic equations and doing all sorts of test prep. And then I managed to get through that stage and I got myself into the case interview stage. And then I started preparing case interviews, but didn't give myself enough time. So went in and bombed in the case interview round. And then my first daughter was born, and then I decided it's probably a bit too late to get into consulting. But for me, it shows that education has power. And I don't blame myself at all for not being able to get into Marketsy at the time. And it also shows that even with the best prep available, if you don't necessarily have some talents that have been developed naturally, even then you still might not be able to get a job. I guess that always tells me that education's great. Take every single opportunity you have to improve your skills, invest in yourself. And at the end of the day, it may give you an advantage with outcomes or it may not, like it didn't in my case with Marketsy.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree that I always think that every knowledge is useful. So should use it and you should take it every time. And the next question is about the Amazon and all these FAANG processes. So I guess they might evolve their interviewing processes over time, right? And your products have to adapt to these interviews. Does it work this way? Do you evolve your products over time?
Our expertise lies specifically with Amazon, and so our eyes are on Amazon. Our network, we have a very large network of folks who work at Amazon who recently left Amazon, and we have a really good understanding about what's happening there in terms of hiring. But the very interesting and quite an odd thing is that yes, things are changing at Amazon in terms of what they do with hiring, but the changes are more around fringes. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing for us, right? Because our knowledge and expertise still holds, right? It matures like a nice bottle of wine. But what it also shows is that when it comes to hiring, once you've really figured it out, once you really know what are the core competencies, the non-negotiable competencies that will make someone successful in your business. And once you build an interviewing and hiring process that filters exclusively for the folks that possess those competencies and filters out the folks who don't, you really don't need to change the process much. And it's also, I guess it also plays to, I believe there's a quote from Jeff Bezos around strategy, because to him, a business strategy is a series of choices that are made about the universal truths about people that don't change overnight. Because it would be very difficult to build a sustainable business based on a strategy that's based on trends and fads. And yes, of course, if you have a company that doesn't have things figured out permanently, or that has a philosophy that every single year they need to, let's say, speak to a different human resources or talent management consultant and change their hiring practices or completely redraw their core competencies, yes, it would make it very difficult for someone like us to build an educational business around it. But it would also make it extremely difficult for them to achieve the cohesion of talent that you do need at some level in an organization. And thankfully, Amazon isn't one of those companies. Amazon has figured out over the years what sort of culture they want to build. They figured out what are the core leadership skills that they're looking for in employees. And that's by the way, that's obviously my opinion of Amazon as a former employee that experienced that culture. And their hiring process tends to be consistent enough for our expertise as former hiring managers and interviewers and also as coaches to make it still exceptionally relevant.
Okay, makes sense. Now I have a couple of questions about the tools you're using. And as far as I can see, you're a big fan of automations. You have mentioned that, and actually I have some background that I saw that you like that. And you even have a YouTube channel called Easy Automations. And my question is, why don't you like all-in-one solutions? Is it you're just patient to build something because you like that, or nothing met your needs?
So I guess there's a couple of things, but let me start with just the tool set that I'm using. So we host our digital courses in our community in a tool called Heartbeat. And Heartbeat is an indie business and started by, I believe, 2 folks in the United States. And it's a platform that allows you to bring folks together. It's a bit like Discord. So imagine blending Discord with a learning management system, with a tool that gives you access to courses. And that tends to work really well because if you think about it, our community is based around educational products. And so being able to chat together and learn together is a great idea. And there are many such platforms around. I bought a lifetime deal into Heartbeat early on when they were quite nascent, and they turned out to be a very devoted two founders, similar to you guys. And so the tool is great. And what I love about this tool is that it's not trying to be everything to everyone, and they're focusing on something that they want to do really well, which is be a community and courses tool. Now, it's also quite extendable, so you can connect it with a whole bunch of other tools. Why do I use Heartbeat rather than something else like Circle or Discord? I love the idea of being able to host digital courses and community together. And I've tried other tools. I've tried tools like Circle and like Mighty Networks. And there's some beauty in these tools, but they're extremely expensive. I'm finding them exceptionally expensive. And unfortunately, they don't give me the same flexibility that Heartbeat does, because it's very extendable and you can connect it with other tools. So that's Heartbeat. For our email marketing, we're using Drip. I discovered Drip a few years ago when I was just starting my side hustle. Since then, I've grown to absolutely love Drip. We love the user interface. We love the logical flows, the conditional programming around sending email campaigns. And Drip is not cheap, but using Google Analytics, we worked out that the ROI that we're getting on Drip is absolutely outstanding. And again, Drip is very extendable, so you can connect it with everything. Then for our website, we're using a tool called Softer. So Softer is actually one of those no-code application builders, but we're using it in a slightly off-label way. So we're using it as a website. And the reason why we're using it as a website is because it allows us to display dynamic data from Airtable. For example, our testimonials, which we store in Airtable, and then we just display those dynamically in list blocks and in Softer. And again, we love the ease with which we can build a website in Softer. It's actually very similar to the Unicorn platform that you guys, it's a sister business of yours. They're very similar. The idea of being able to build the website very quickly using blocks and pre-designed blocks, which I find for entrepreneurs like ourselves that don't have a lot of time designing websites, I think the tools like Unicorn platform or Softer are really good. And then I guess when it comes to payment acquisition and the actual store, so for a long time we were sitting just with Stripe. So we would set up all of our products in Stripe. We would collect payments in Stripe, and then we would fulfill them with accounts in Heartbeat using an automation middleware. And the automation middleware, we're using everything on this planet. We're using Make, we're using Pabbly Connect, we're using Active Pieces, which is an amazing product, which is also an indie product, by the way, that I believe two founders started with some Y Combinator funding, I believe. And then, so that's what we've been doing for quite a while until I discovered you guys. So I discovered Marketsy. And what I as obviously you guys will know and your audience will know, so we've transitioned our store entirely to Marketsy. So now we merchandise all of our courses and actually non-courses. So soon we will merchandise all credit packs, AI credit packs also in Marketsy. And the reason why we do this is because we've been always looking for a solution that allows us to merchandise our products in a storefront similar to Amazon. So with carousels, with product categories. And we love the flexibility of it. Because I guess when you're using something like Stripe, you're essentially what you're having is checkout pages, right? You end up having to use payment links. And when you use payment links, you have checkout pages. And the only thing that resembles a store in the closest possible way is the pricing table, the dynamic pricing table that Stripe can generate. But that is only good for, let's say, software as a service subscription, where you can merchandise 3 pricing tiers, and that's it, right? You can't really merchandise a store. Whereas we sell digital courses which are one-offs, so we sell them for a lifetime. So in that respect, they're very similar to physical products. So they lend themselves really well with merchandising. We have a whole menu of different products that we sell. And then what was amazing is that obviously you guys, I purchased a lifetime deal with you guys early on, and you guys have been incredibly flexible with building features like that I need, and hopefully other folks need it. So I know that I believe early on, I asked you guys to build a native integration into Google Analytics with advanced e-commerce tracking, which is something that very oddly enough, Stripe does not have built in their payment links. And if anyone from Stripe is listening, guys, come on, what is this? Everything else is cool about Stripe except that. Why not?
They're going to be our competitors then.
Well, exactly. But the flexibility that you guys have done Google Analytics integration, you guys did webhooks, we collaborated on even the structure of the data that you were collecting and sending to me. You guys are now working on abandoned carts, which I guess it was an idea of quite a few of your customers, not just myself, but just the fact that you guys are focusing on developing the roadmap on something that we actually need is amazing. When it comes to extendability and the whole all-in-one versus many different tools. So again, to each their own. When I just started out, I used an all-in-one tool called Kajabi. And Kajabi is a great product. Don't get me wrong. Kajabi is a great product. If you're looking for something that's just all-in-one and does everything, has your courses, your community, your website, your email auto-response, it's a great tool. What I started finding, though, is that tools like Kajabi, they end up being exceptionally expensive. And I know that in their marketing, they will claim that, well, we replace all those other tools. Yes, they do, but they don't give you as much flexibility as you can get if you're using a multitude of tools. And so once I started trying, for example, moving my checkout away from Kajabi and let's say using a tool called Thrivecart and then fulfilling purchases in Thrivecart in Kajabi via using Zapier. Then once I got the flavor of what automation actually gives you and the fact that it unshackles you from this lock-in into one platform and you can chop and change, and if something better or something new comes up, you can actually drop a platform, you can move somewhere else because you're not limited to that particular platform. I thought, wow, really the world is my oyster. And that's where I guess I developed an appreciation for tools that aren't trying to be everything for everyone, but they're trying to do this one thing or maybe a few highly adjacent tasks, but really well. And then if their API is good, if it's extendable, if it's simple to use for someone like myself who's not a software developer, when I look at a JSON payload, it doesn't make me vomit. Put it this way, I can understand. I can see the database behind a JSON, and I can see an Excel spreadsheet behind a JSON payload. Okay, fine. I just came to appreciate tools that focus on something, on just one thing or a couple of very related things, and I can deliver a much better customer experience this way.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. We are absolutely grateful that for your feedback, and I still get some insights about what we are going to do next, actually. So yeah, that's super cool. And another question about one of your products, you offer AI coach to your customers. And as for me, it looks like an amazing automation. You just put your away from the process of the constant being involved all the time. But my question is how well this AI can replace you at the moment. For example, it can cover 50 to 80% of questions and in a good quality of answers, etc.
Sure. So yes, we offer, together with our courses, when you purchase our packages, you get access to a service that we call an AI story review. And what it does is, so again, just to give some context to folks who might be listening to this, the way that you prepare for a behavioral interview at Amazon is you need to prepare a story bank of pre-prepared interview answers. And the reason why you do that is because Amazon interviews candidates in what's called a behavioral interview format. In other words, every single interview question that Amazon asks folks in non-technical interview rounds, it sounds, tell me about a time when, for example, you solved a complex problem with a simple solution. So it's always a question about something that you did in the past. And so the response to all these interview questions, it always must be a story, right? And because it's something that has to come from your past. And because of that, you can create a whole bank, a story bank of these stories, and you can look them up and you can use them during the interview, and you can rehearse them. And that's the whole idea behind the approach, the preparation approach that we offer, that makes you essentially makes it easier for candidates to be able to anticipate the questions that Amazon will ask and have ready-made answers. In our live coaching sessions, we simulate an interview, and then we give the candidate feedback based on what they share with us. Now, after doing 500 or 600 of these coaching sessions, some patterns emerged inevitably. And the minute you have patterns emerging, you can instruct a large language model like GPT-4 or anything like this to evaluate someone's response against a standard that you have developed as a coach. And that's exactly what I've done. Is it as accurate or as good as an in-person coaching session? Of course not. Sometimes it tends to be overzealous. It tends to be a coach that is very passionate about its job, because it takes the instructions quite literally. And in some cases, it doesn't understand the nuances of someone's job. If someone, for example, doesn't share as many details as they should have in a story, and GPT's basic training lacks the context, and it's something that, for example, Gigi or myself, we would have picked up intuitively. This is where sometimes GPT's intuition runs out, and so you can instruct it as much as you can, but there are some edge cases where only a live coach can do. But I would say that between 65 to 75% efficiency, or I guess effectiveness, it's there. The good thing is with all these AI tools is that, first things first, the product itself, the AI story review, it has nothing to do with the actual AI. The AI, the large language model, is there to essentially impersonate our expertise. The magic is still with us, with our expertise, and not with the actual language model or the tool itself. And the second thing is, the reason why we're offering this tool is it's not so that we don't get involved. That when we launched this AI coach, this AI story review, we didn't experience a drop in live coaching bookings, because there's space for live coaching, and then there's space for these AI tools. The best thing is about this AI tool is that in a live coaching, we can get the candidate to share, let's say, 2 to 3 stories with us. And the price for the coaching session, they're not cheap, right? We're charging $250 for a 90-minute session. Now, for the same amount of money, you can evaluate your entire story bank that you're preparing for your Amazon interview using the AI tool. So it's the exceptional value that it delivers. Once you maybe had 1 or 2 sessions with us, or even 1 session with us, you can purchase these AI credits and just evaluate the rest of your story bank for the price of 1 coaching session.
Yeah, absolutely agree that it's just not the replacing of yours, but just an extending, right, and the new service.
Sure.
Cool. And even though you have this AI project, I have a question about the whole AI wave that we are experiencing at the moment. So don't you think that it might be a threat for your business, for example, or for the whole digital economy?
I actually don't think so. I think what's new is the popularity of large language models, right? The AI applications themselves, they've existed for years and years. And I guess what's different right now with the large language models is that they're trained on the general human knowledge that's available there on the internet, in the open space. And I think if you're in an info business, right? Which is the business that we're in an info business or education business. And you're sharing and if your business is based on expertise that is readily available and that is out there in the open space, then yes, that would generally be a threat, because someone could build an AI tool based on the generic training and the generic quote-unquote intellect of a large language model like GPT-4, and with a little bit of prompting, you could effectively replicate someone's info business, provided that it's based on something that GPT or another large language model would have been trained on. But if your info business is based on what we call custom knowledge and custom expertise, that's not out there, that isn't anything that a vanilla large language model would be able to train on, then there is no threat. And that's why we're feeling exceptionally comfortable with the evolution of the AI tools, because, as I mentioned in my previous response, we're not selling your access to ChatGPT. That's not what we're doing. We're using the brain of ChatGPT to turn itself into a character of myself and Gigi. So essentially, you're still paying for our expertise, which you wouldn't be able to find anywhere in the open sources. And that's what we're telling. That's what we're telling to candidates that are sometimes also, obviously, they want to work at Amazon. Amazon is in a tech space. A lot of candidates watch YouTubes and they use these AI tools. And then their question to us is, well, aren't you just selling us ChatGPT? Why don't we just pay $20 a month for ChatGPT subscription and that's it, and we have that AI coach? I'm like, well, be my guest, try it. And they try it, and yep, okay, we understand. It's not about the actual language models, it's about the expertise. So we're feeling pretty comfortable. That being said, if someone, for example, decides to take one step further and actually create a fully fine-tuned model based on someone's expertise that's similar to us, then yeah, that would be a genuine competitor. Obviously, we'd be able to copy that immediately ourselves, because fine-tuning large language models is becoming more and more accessible. So we could do that as well, and maybe we will do that at some point in time in our next stage. But otherwise, no. If you have custom knowledge, you shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah, exactly. So right now I have a kind of relief that we are not going to be replaced that soon.
Being said, in my automation shenanigans, I've discovered an amazing way, because with the likes of Public Connect and Active Pieces, when you do automations, there's a beautiful module in there. It's called a code piece, and it allows you to run a Node.js or a Python script inside an automation process. And I just got ChatGPT to make these scripts for me, and they work amazingly well. So you guys should think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's a great idea. And I am, as a former or actual developer, I always use that. So I became too lazy right now to create some big selection from the database, because, oh, it's not interesting. Just give me this piece of code and that's it. Yeah, it's our future. It's actually our present.
Indeed.
Yeah, yeah. And I have the last question. It's, if you could go back in time and start your business from scratch, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I guess I probably would have moved to the structure of many tools versus one tool quicker, because I remember being in this period where I was stuck in this whole Kajabi, or when I was using Mighty Networks, and essentially I was in this whole area of I just need one tool that does it all. And it's been and actually the other thing that took me a while was discovering AppSumo and these marketplaces for indie businesses that are trying to compete with big businesses and are attracting kind of the cash flow by selling lifetime licenses. A lot of these tools, they go bust very quickly, but equally a lot of these tools like yours, they have committed developers. And I just, you know what, I love the whole idea of running our business, which is an indie business, without any venture capital, any money other than our own, fully independently funded, on software that is also developed, except maybe one or two tools. But on most of our platforms that we're running are being developed by indie founders. Oh, I absolutely love it. It took me a while to discover where to find these indie founders in this software, and I wish I just got there quicker. Better later than never, I guess.
Yeah, Exactly. Cool. That's great. And I think that's it. It was a super insightful conversation for me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation, and I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing with Marketsy. And I wish you guys all the success. And as I'm sure you guys will probably have a fan base of founding customers, and we'll be there to help you in any way we can, so that you can enable more creators and more founders to sell great products.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for your kind words.